Have you ever found yourself in a brand new place, surrounded by unfamiliar streets, people you've never met, and the quiet realization that your life has just changed in a big way? For you, that moment came when she moved to a new city. It wasn't a choice she made entirely for herself. It was a work arrangement for her husband, and she embraced it with the same supportive spirit she always carried. But as anyone who has ever moved knows, starting over in a new place is never simple. At first, the city felt like a puzzle without a guide. The buildings were tall and unfamiliar, and the air carried both excitement and loneliness. Here, in this new place, she was just another face in the crowd. Her husband's schedule was busy, filled with meetings and deadlines that often stretched late into the night. And while she understood the importance of his work, there were evenings when the quiet walls of their home seemed louder than any conversation. Yet, in that new city, she wasn't entirely alone. By chance, or perhaps by a quiet stroke of life's design, one familiar thread remained Billy, an old friend from her hometown. They weren't best friends in the dramatic sense, nor did they share a complicated history. They were simply people who once walked through the same childhood streets, who once shared laughter in the same familiar places, and now, unexpectedly, found themselves living in the same city again. At first, you hesitated. Would it feel strange to reach out after so long? Would the years that had passed turn conversations into awkward pauses? But curiosity and the need for a friendly voice outweighed hesitation. She decided to call him. It wasn't a dramatic reunion, just two old friends talking about simple things, memories of the past, updates about their current lives, and laughter over little details only they would remember. And so, once in a while, when her schedule allowed and his day wasn't too full, you and Billy would catch up. Sometimes it was just a quick chat over the phone. Other times, it was a lunch shared at a nearby cafe, where the food tasted familiar, simply because the conversation felt natural. For you, these small interactions weren't dramatic turning points, but gentle reassurances. They reminded her that even in a place that felt foreign, she wasn't invisible. Friendship pure, respectful, and rooted in the innocence of the past became a source of strength. And through it all, she never lost sight of the life she was building with her husband. Her love for him, her commitment to their marriage, remained the center of her days. What she found with Billy was not a distraction, but a reminder that in life, we thrive not only through romance or family, but also through the quiet power of friendships that carry no hidden agenda. Many of us, at one point or another, have found ourselves in unfamiliar surroundings, searching for something to ground us. Sometimes it's a kind neighbor. Sometimes it's a hobby or a new community. And sometimes it's an old friend whose presence feels like a gentle bridge between who we were and who we're becoming. Yu's journey shows us that beginnings can be daunting, but they don't have to be faced alone. With kindness, openness, and the willingness to nurture meaningful connections, even the most foreign city can start to feel a little more like home. As the days in her new city began to settle into a rhythm, you found yourself noticing the small sparks of joy that slowly transformed the unfamiliar into something more welcoming. It started with little things. These details, though ordinary, carried an extraordinary gift. They helped her feel grounded. The city no longer seemed so intimidating. Its streets became less like a maze and more like pathways of possibility. Each corner held a new experience, and with every step, you realized that change didn't have to be overwhelming. It could be exciting. This sense of exploration gave her energy, but what made it truly meaningful was sharing parts of it with a familiar friend. Billy became a quiet companion in this stage of discovery. Their connection wasn't constant or demanding, It was natural, flowing like conversations with someone who knows just enough about your past to understand the significance of your present. They laughed about small things, like the way the bakery on their childhood street always sold out of bread too quickly, or how they used to think their hometown was the center of the world. These moments weren't about nostalgia alone. They were about creating a new layer of comfort in a city that once felt isolating. You realized something important. Friendships, when rooted in respect and sincerity, are timeless. They don't demand daily attention or constant presence. Instead, they thrive in authenticity, offering encouragement and balance. There was a freshness to these encounters. Unlike the hurried exchanges she sometimes had with strangers, these talks with Billy carried familiarity. It was as if the city's noise faded for a while, replaced by laughter that reminded her of who she was at her core, a person who valued connection, kindness, and simplicity. Her husband, though busy, began to notice this subtle shift in Yu's spirit. She seemed lighter, more at ease. Their conversations at home carried more warmth, and even when he was tired from long hours at work, Yu's smile brought a sense of peace into their shared space. It wasn't that her husband suddenly had more free time. It was that Yu was finding her own ways to flourish in the city, creating balance for herself and for them as a couple. Excitement doesn't always come from dramatic adventures or life-changing events. Sometimes it emerges from the courage to embrace new experiences while holding on to the values that matter most. Yu embraced her days with openness. She began to notice patterns. The elderly couple who always walked hand in hand through the park, the young students practicing music near the library steps, and the local vendors who greeted her with cheerful words, even though she was still new. Each encounter carried a lesson. Life becomes fuller when we take time to see others and when we allow ourselves to be seen. Billy's presence was simply a part of this broader journey, not its center. He represented the comfort of familiarity, but Yu also understood that her true foundation was her family. Every time she returned home, she carried these experiences back to her husband. She shared the stories, the small discoveries, and the lessons she learned from the people around her. In this way, her life became a blend of past, present, and future woven together by love, friendship, and the willingness to grow. Excitement, you realized, is not about chasing constant thrills. It's about appreciating the gift of connection, the adventure of discovery, and the joy of balancing who you are with who you're becoming. And in this stage of her story, she found that the city was no longer just a place she had to live in. It was becoming a place where she could belong. Even as you settled into her new life, there were still moments when challenges felt heavier than she expected. The city, with all its energy and opportunities, also carried with it long stretches of solitude. Her husband's work remained demanding, and though you never questioned his dedication, there were nights when she found herself sitting at the dinner table, wishing the chair across from her wasn't empty. These were the moments when the quiet became loud. She sometimes wondered if she was doing enough to build her own sense of belonging. Was she leaning too much on her friendship with Billy? Was she creating enough opportunities to grow her own circle in this city? These weren't doubts about loyalty or love. They were the honest, human reflections of someone adjusting to change. You understood the importance of balance. Friendship had become a comfort, but she knew that true growth meant stepping outside the safety of what was familiar. She realized that while Billy's companionship helped ease her loneliness, it couldn't be the only source of her strength. If she wanted to truly thrive in this new city, she needed to create her own roots, not only rely on the ones carried over from the past. This recognition wasn't easy. It carried the weight of responsibility. It meant she would have to face her discomfort, introduce herself to strangers, and risk moments of awkwardness. But Yu also knew that every meaningful connection in her life had once been unfamiliar, and courage was what transformed strangers into friends. That day, she told her husband about the things she had learned, and his tired expression softened into a proud smile. He told her how grateful he was that she was finding her own way, how much it meant to him that she was building her life in the city alongside him. That moment reminded Yu that even though they were often apart physically, their partnership was still strong, built on mutual support and understanding. Billy noticed the change in Yu as well. He encouraged her to keep reaching out, to keep building her world, and Yu appreciated that kind of encouragement, the kind that empowers rather than confines. The drama in Yu's story wasn't a loud confrontation or a sharp conflict. It was the quiet struggle of learning to adapt, the internal dialogue that tested her resilience. She realized that growth often comes disguised as discomfort. The moments that feel most uncertain are the very ones that shape us into stronger, wiser versions of ourselves. As Yu's days unfolded, she carried these lessons with her. She still called Billy. She still cherished the small rituals of friendship. But now she also had her own activities, her own connections, and her own rhythm in the city. The balance she was building wasn't just about managing time between friendship and marriage. It was about creating harmony within herself. Yu's story reminds us that life's transitions don't have to be faced alone. Friendship, when rooted in respect, can bring comfort, while love and family remain the foundation we build upon. Her journey teaches us that true growth comes from balance, embracing change, nurturing connections, and holding close the values that matter most. In every new beginning, courage and kindness create a path toward belonging.